and I am a National College of Ireland student, and I'm here to introduce you your lawyer project, which is a web application. And first, I would like to talk a little of the background. Where did I get this idea? Well, in Brazil, I am from Brazil. I have many lawyers friends. The thing is that many of them don't work as a lawyer because it's not that they are bad, but it's just because they never got the opportunity. Uh, the market is over, well, there are many lawyers. And if you actually Google the meaning of lawyer, you're gonna find it's a person who practices or studies law. So even though my friends, most of them don't work as lawyers, they are still lawyers because they graduated in law or studied. Well, talking about Google, have you ever got overwhelmed with so much information when you search at Google? Let's say that you have a sore throat or anything like that, and you just want to find a solution for your problem, but you don't have that magic keyword. So you type a text, and then what you get is you get more confused than when you were before. Instead of helping you, it gives you more problem. Well, when you have a juridical case, you have a problem, and you try to do it at Google as well, you might get more confused than you were before. Sometimes you don't even know if it's an advantage for you to try to start a case for your juridical problem. You have no idea from where to start because you don't know any lawyer. Well, let's say, what about if there's a unique place where you post your inquiry and someone specialized would contact you and solve your juridical problem for you? Jolar is an application to connect clients to specialized lawyers. Well, it's like Deliveroo or Uber Eats, but instead of connecting clients with restaurants, the idea of your lawyer application is to connect clients with lawyers. So the goal of your lawyer is to help both clients and lawyers to solve their problems. Where clients can find a solution for their inquiries, the lawyers can find new clients and they can have a professional exposure. So how does it work? Well, it is a web application that allows the users to register as two types. They can register as a lawyer or as a client. And when they register themselves as lawyer, the user can register the specialization and receive inquiries from different clients. And when you register as a client, you can select a specialization available by the website, and you can make your inquiry case to professional lawyers. So it's just a match. Let's say the client make inquiries and the lawyers receive these inquiries and contact the clients. And here is a little of the technology that I've been using to create your lawyer application. First of all, the application is deployed on Heroku. So here's the link in case you want to access. You can pause the video and copy the link. The application is entirely created using React.js, which is a JavaScript library. It also uses Google Firebase API to authenticate and store user data. The application makes use of Redux to manage the state and mitigate complexity and allow future scalability. I'm gonna come back at Redux to explain the importance of this, which is really important. User can quickly navigate between pages through router and switch, and which is also a React library. The application is well divided into various components to make it reusable and scalable-proof. The application uses redirect, which is another library from React, to redirect the page. Let's say that the user is not signing, so he or she won't be able to access certain content, and it's possible because of the redirect technology. And it uses also styled components, which is basically CSS, but in JavaScript. Styled components is a better option because it generates new ideas, and people can reuse the component without being afraid of having naming issues. The application make also use of React Tongue, which is a middleware, uh, and the application use some material UI. It's deployed on GitHub to maintain a backup and historic of the application and alterations and future scalability, so it helps. So those are the technologies used for your Laravel application. To understand the application and to start creating it, I first created some user stories, requirements, to understand what I would have to do. And as a user, you can be a client or lawyer. As a user, I need to be able to access my account from anywhere. So let's say I want to have an account and save whatever I have and be able to log in and log out and etc. As a client, I must be able to find someone specialized to solve my problem. As a lawyer, I want to know when someone requires my specialization, and I also must be able to contact them. As a client, I want to hire someone to solve my cases from the comfort of my house, and as a lawyer, I should be able to consult cases and have currently in the process, and as a user, both client and lawyer, I should be able to close a case or an inquiry. Well, in order to fulfill those requirements, I created those functional requirements register, which basically allows the customer to register as a client or lawyer. The users also must be able to log in and have access to functionalities according to what they registered at the very beginning. Clients should be able to select specialization and also make new inquiries. And contact client is also a functionality which allows lawyers to contact the clients that made the inquiry. And finally, a search inquiry is also for a lawyer, and it should allows the lawyer to search inquiries in their account. The application must store inquiries in the cloud in Firebase, and also must be able to require inquiries according to the specialization from the cloud on Firebase. And the data is fetched according to the type of user. If it's a client or a user, it has different data requirements. And here I created a use case just to explain a little how the application works. So this is the system. This is the client, the user who interacts with the system. It starts any interaction, and the Firebase is the database. Well, the user is able to use some of those functionalities, either register, login, require, or contact client search, depending on the registration that they done before. When the user try to use the register functionality, they need to select a type of user if they're gonna be a client or lawyer. And once they're done, the register functionality validates the account. And who is responsible for validation is the Firebase. The same when the user tries to log in, the Firebase validates the account. The user, depending on being a client or a lawyer, has two options. If it's a client, the user is able to choose a specialization and make an inquiry, whereas if the user is a lawyer, he has the option to search inquiries and contact the client. And all of these are integrated with Firebase. Every time that the user makes an inquiry, Firebase stores the inquiry. Well, system architecture. So as I was showing on the use case, basically the user interacts with the system, and the system makes requests to the Firebase. For example, make a new inquiry or give me the inquiries that you have. So the Firebase says, well, I have to get those informations. So the Firebase uses the API to contact the server and gets the information. So it gets back to Firebase and send the response back to the system. And the system architecture of the application is composed of Firebase, React.js, which is responsible for the whole implementation. Redux, this is very important. So Redux is the state management of the component in React. And then Middleware. Well, I'll explain. Uh, After showing this, you have a brief understanding of how the architecture of the system works, but you need to understand the intern process of your lawyer. Well, it all starts on the DOM. The DOM, if you Google it, you see it's a document object model. It's basically the UI of the application. It's a fancy way to say it. The DOM, or the user interface, is composed of many components. Well, if I show you the application here, this would be the header. This is a directory component. This is the footer. When I go to another page, you can see here, this is a tab. I can select two tabs, client or lawyer. So this is a component. This is a reusable component. If you remember, going back to the home page, I use the same characteristics for this. I just changed the text. The select option is another component, and this is a sign in or sign up component as well. So there are many components. So if you see here, the DOM is composed of many components. And every time the user interacts with those components by clicking somewhere or signing in or signing up, those components, they generate objects, and those objects became actions. And those actions are sent to the root reducer. And the root reducer says, I have to store this information somewhere. So the root reducer stores the information, and according to who asked anything or who said anything, the root reducer is responsible to pass this information to the DOM and update whatever the user interface is looking like. The user login, for example, the information is passed as an object and then goes to the root reducer. The root reducer says, now the status of the current user is Patrick Brenner. And then it says, look, the user is logging now. He have access to new functionalities. And then the DOM is alters and makes this change, inform the components that the changes were made. And what about the middleware? Well, the middleware is just a thing that intercepts every action that passes through to the reducer and do something. So intercepts the action and do something. In your lawyer, I have two middlewares. I have the logger. So the logger is responsible for this. The logger basically logs the information in the console to help a developer like me to have information about what's going on in the application and which action was triggered. So this is an action, this is another action. Well, that's how it works. Whereas the thunk, it's basically it's a middleware that allows, instead of passing only information and objects, the thunk allows the application to send functions as well. So let's say that a unique function has 3 new informations. So the middleware thunk receives this information, active the function, and send whatever comes out from this to the root reducer. And inside the root reducer, so this is also Redux. Redux allows this to happen. The root reducer is composed of many small reducers, and every time a component updates, this information is sent to the proper reducer responsible for this component. The user reducer is responsible for the signing component, the handle data is responsible for the enquiry, and the directory is responsible for selecting the type of component. Well, the Redux, what it does, it gets many of those reducers, gets the information and save it somewhere. So every time that an action happens, it just updates the DOM. That's how Redux works. Well, now that I showed you how the system architecture works, I will send you a little of the design of the application. So this is the homepage. First, I would like to remind you that React, it's a single page application. So as I was showing in the Redux, it's only a DOM. It's an interface that updates according to what happens to the components. So it's basically like a single HTML page, and it changes according to interactions. So for example, what it's changing, it's only the body content here, and it changes according to where I click and what I do, and only renders what I am clicking, because it renders only the component that needs. So it makes it faster. Well, so this is the home page. If I click here, as I'm not signed in, I am redirected to the sign in page. I can sign in with Google or using my email. So I will sign in with Google just to show. And once I sign in, I have a new option here, enquiries, and this is updated to sign out. Well, if I click here, I definitely sign out, but if I try to enter in the sign in, I can't. I am redirected to the home page. So once I am signing, I have the access to this page, enquiries. Well, if I sign in as a client, I have access to this. I can make enquiries to the lawyers registered in the application. Whereas if I sign in as a lawyer, so I have a lawyer login here. If I sign in as a lawyer, when I click enquiries, it renders a new functionality, new things. So it describes me the steps to contact the client. Also, I have the option to search enquiries according to the title. And I have the option to contact the client author of the certain enquiry. Well, that's amazing, I think. So I will sign out. Now I have that I am accessible to the signing page, and I can sign in as a client or as a lawyer. It will figure it out by itself using Firebase. So I have many users here, and when I sign up, I have a property type of user that when I try to sign in, it validates the type of user and renders for me whatever the type of user I am. So I can sign up as a client. I have a few options, and including sign up with Google. And if I try to sign up as a lawyer, I don't have this sign up with Google because it's a Google API and I need more information. But I can select the specialization and etc. So if I try to sign up without filling the information, it asks me to fill and go on. And that's it. Well, now finally I would like to talk about the most difficult implementation that I had, and for me was the integration with Firebase and retrieving enquiries from Firebase. Before I show you the code, I just show you guys how the project is structured. So we have here the source, assets, the components that are rendered when the page starts. Firebase is everything related to Firebase. Pages are the 3 pages that I have, homepage, signing, and enquiries, and Redux is responsible to manage the information and pass it to the components. So then the components render whatever it is supposed to. Well, in the handle data is responsible for fetching the data from Firebase. So I created these fetch enquiries using Redux tongue to dispatch multiple functions. So when I log in as a lawyer, the app.js recognize it and calls the function fetch enquiries async, which is in the handle data folder. So what this function do, it basically collects whatever specialization the lawyer is. So let's say the lawyer is specialized in property. But also, the thing is, when I sign up, when I create a new inquiry, I can select the specialization. So property, immigration, family, or whatever. But also, if I select no specialization at all, I have the option of all. So every time I create a new inquiry, Firebase recognizes the inquiry and create a new collection. If the collection already exists, it just creates the inquiry. Otherwise, it creates a new collection. And if I don't know which specialization I am, I created this all, and it's supposed to be sent to all the lawyers registered in the application. So if I go to inquiries, those are the options, and I click no idea, it actually shows me all, the value of all. That was a problem because now I had to collect two collections from Firebase. I had to collect the collection referent to the specialization of the lawyer being logged in, but also I had to collect this all specialization. Well, the solution was to create a new state in the Redux to store information only for all and another state only for the specialization. So every time a user logs in as a lawyer, what it does is it collects the specialization, the inquiries for that specialization, plus the inquiries with the tag all. And it uses promises to collect the snapshots from Firebase, and I active this function, convert collection snapshot. So we go to Firebase, and what this function does is basically it goes to the collections in Firebase. So let's say here in property, I have two objects. So the property is actually a collection, and it has two objects. So I have to map through all of the objects and get this information. So the convert collection, what it does is it goes through the objects, each inquiry, and it gets the ID of the document, or the date in which it was created, the current user status, the inquiry, the specialization title, and then return it as an array object. Well, handle data calls this twice because I have to access two collections, the specialization and the all collection. So this was pretty difficult, but the secret is in the search inquiries component, which is responsible for once the user logs in as a lawyer. So I will try again. What it does is it fetches the inquiry and it populates the data. So for data, I have one array for inquiries and other for inquiries all. So I had to create two arrays. And how to display it here, independent of the specialization. In order to do so, I basically I used my Java knowledge in here. I created two variables, one for max length, and I collected the value of the two inquiries and inquiries all, respective to the two collections that I've retrieved in the data. So then I created two loops, and I also created a temporary array. So what it does is this temporary array, it gets the information from the first inquiries and populates it until the maximum size of this inquiry. So then it continues populating the temporary array with the information of the second inquiries array, but from where it stops. So basically this function here, it collects the two information for the two collections and transforms in one unique array. And once it's done, it populates the inquiry state on the component, and display it to the user. I know it's pretty difficult to understand, but for me it was pretty difficult to do as well. And respective to the tests that I done, I created a leave me a feedback option on the page. So every time someone tests the application, they can leave actually a feedback. And because the testing form that I'm using is a gratuitous one, is a free, I only have 10 responses that are available. So at the moment, I can't create new feedbacks only from the 12th of September, but I collected data enough to have an idea of what is going on. So this is my test, my feedback. I created 9 questions to the users, and the result is here. I appended this information to the documentation, but the result was this. Between the 9 questions, 3 of them were related to the impression of the application and the overall idea. So the result was pretty good actually, because it was from 0 to 5 and most of them were 5 or 4. And this is the evaluation, the feedback of the custom, and the advantage of your lawyer. Well, people who need juridical advice can easily find a way to solve their problem by making queries to the lawyers registered in the application. The application displays a few steps orienting the 2 possible types of user to reach their goal. So as I show here, when you're in the home page, you're probably a client, or you can also be a lawyer. But if you go to your inquiries, when you're a lawyer, you can find out the steps to do whatever you want here. But when you're a client, you have your home page, and the idea here is to explain what you are able to do. So this is one of the advantages. New lawyers who are looking for professional exposure and clients can find inquiries according to their specialization and have the possibility to make deals by contacting clients. Well, the disadvantage, the application still does not have control of inquiries and sensible content, so this way people can input all types of inquiry. But this will have a solution soon when I create a way to delete inquiries as well. But for the moment, as the project has only 2 months to be concluded, I couldn't finish this part yet, but it's something for the future. It is still not possible to manage and update inquiries, and it is still not possible to verify the status of inquiries and inform if the case is already solved or not. Further development or research. Well, the application has a great potential, and what I want to do for the next updates is to allow the user to manage their profile, to allow the user to manage their inquiries as well, provide status for the inquiries if it's done or not, so then the lawyers can have access only to the inquiries that are still available. And there are also a few new ideas, which are service rating feedback. So once the client got their case done, they can give a feedback saying if the lawyer who assisted him was good or not. Also keep track of juridical cases, find lawyers by location, specialization suggestions using machine learning is another idea. And that's it. Thank you very much for your attention, and I hope you have a great